is Rory O'Toole.
And my name is Matt Schultz.
And this is How to Be,
the podcast where we discuss ancient wisdom, modern hacks, paperback self-help books, and pithy platitudes,
in the hopes of figuring out the best way to live this one precious and wild life.
Do you like to follow the leader? Are you a sucker for a man in uniform? If so, join us as we discuss authority.
Hey, Matt.
Okay, so as you know, I just spilled my wine here inside my recording fort.
This little wino always has to be drinking in order to record this podcast.
I think it makes me charismatic, like Fun Bobby.
Fun Maddie.
Remember Fun Bobby?
Of course I do. That's a Friends reference, people.
Did you see Jennifer Aniston's birthday post?
From Gwyneth Paltrow?
No, she posted it.
She posted her own birthday post.
I think so.
What did it say?
It was just pictures of her through the years with this audio about how when you turn a new age, you're actually still you're like a nesting doll of ages within ages.
Oh, interesting. It was like a speech someone was saying?
Yeah, I imagine that someone else made a TikTok.
Yeah.
And it was like audio from that TikTok, and it must have become like a trend to like use that audio with pictures of yourself.
Yeah. That's a nice sentiment.
I thought it was sweet, and it made me appreciate Jennifer Aniston.
Do you think you underappreciated her before?
No, but I haven't been thinking about her for the past 2 months. I had that period where I was really obsessed with her for a minute.
I also love Jennifer Aniston and her commitment to being one color, which I think we've talked about on this show.
Yes.
Low contrast human being.
Hair, skin, eyes?
No, I think she has blue eyes.
Yeah. They're not breaking up the one color, though.
No.
So what I want to ask is, me spilling my wine, was that spill preordained, written into the very fabric of the Big Bang?
Well, that's a heavy question. In this dimension, yes, but not in the other dimensions. There's a dimension where you didn't spill your wine.
Really?
There's a dimension where you spilled a bottle of wine. There's a dimension where wine doesn't exist.
I don't believe that. Because like, according to that theory, it's like, okay, so there, like, in this dimension that we live in, like, my actions, it's not like each decision I make is completely siloed from the other ones. It's like life is of a piece. So why would there be some universe in which I go out and kill someone tonight?
Because I don't know, but if there's infinity universes with infinity options, it could all be possible, right? All the unfoldings, all the different combos.
That's a slightly different theory. So there's the theory that there's just so many universes that everything that could theoretically arises. And then there's the theory of the sliding doors theory, really, that every time we make a decision, it splits. I'm like, no, I was never going to go see The English Patient instead of Sack Lunch. Like, I was always going to see Sack Lunch. Like, there is no universe in which I go see The English Patient.
Well, what about the universe where The English Patient isn't even made into a movie?
Yeah. And again, that's the infinite universes theory versus the splitting ends.
They aren't the same?
No, I don't think so. I think one is just like, there's so many universes that eventually you'll make one that's almost exactly like this one, except one thing is different.
Yeah.
Versus the idea that every time we make a decision, we create a new universe.
I see. Like two roads diverged in a yellow wood.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I prefer the former, not the latter.
Yeah.
Too much pressure.
Too much pressure. I wouldn't mind a universe in which the expression former and latter doesn't exist. I find it very confusing.
Oh my gosh. Is that an insult? Are you insulting me?
No, I
Not
just find it
insulting me,
confusing. I'm insulting myself.
criticizing me?
I have to, every time I hear the former and the latter, I have to think back to summer camp when I was in a production of Damn Yankees at Camp Micah. And this girl who I thought was really talented, I was blown away by her talent. She sings, "A little brains, a little talent, with an emphasis on the latter."
Um,
And she does sort of a seductive move there, like the talent
Outland is, yeah, I find
is
latter
her
and former
sexuality.
easier when they're together because former is pretty obvious.
They both mean the same thing. Former and no, latter means later.
Latter means later. Oh, maybe that could help you.
Yeah, Latter-day Saints.
Yeah, I recently looked up why they're called Latter-day Saints.
I think it's because like it's about later biblical, like they think the story kept unfolding.
Right.
Later day.
Later day. Um, Wait, you said something interesting. Oh, I wonder what happened to that girl. Do you remember her name? Have you ever Googled her?
No, I don't remember her name.
Okay.
But yeah, I remember watching her and being like, she's got it.
Which-
Sexual charisma.
Oh, now we're so old. She's probably just married and a mom, and
You don't think she's on Broadway?
maybe.
Still doing Damn Yankees? Maybe she's still doing Damn Yankees at Camp Micah.
Maybe she works at Camp Micah.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder where she is.
Um, okay. Camp friends. Did you have close camp friends?
No, I'm not like, I didn't have that Jewish American experience.
I
I only
did.
went to camp for 3 years.
I had camp. I was a camp girl.
Really?
Yeah, which is something that people can't quite conceive of me.
Yeah, it's
Does
not what I
not
picture.
track.
Where do kids in Chicago go to camp?
Wisconsin.
Oh, the place where the summer camps are is
Yeah.
different for children everywhere.
And that was my first exposure to the Jewish community.
Well, was it a Jewish camp?
No, but a lot of people there were Jewish. What is that about
Interesting.
Jewish people in summer camp?
I don't know.
Because I saw this like person on the street interview in New York where this girl goes up to people and asks them a series of questions to determine if they're Jewish or not. And one of
Oh,
the
I've seen
questions,
that.
yeah, one of the questions is, did you go to summer camp?
Yeah, she can't just ask, did you go to Jewish summer camp? That would be a cheat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge part of Jewish culture. I think Jewish parents are always looking for ways to instill Judaism in their kids that don't involve them having to do it themselves.
Interesting. Yeah, also this camp was theater camp, which is very Jewish too, a Jewish art form.
Yes, the Yiddish theater.
Anyway, before that, I went to Bible camp. Quite the opposite.
You know, I actually went to a Christian camp before I went to Jewish camp.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a YMCA camp, and we had like this chapel with a cross made out of birchwood, which I thought was quite beautiful.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then at Jewish summer camp, I really had a religious awakening.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, I would look at the sky and just talk to God.
Is that the beginning of your religion for you, you think?
No, because then there was a disconnect. But I remember looking out at like the lake and being like, this is so beautiful. Like this has to be proof of God. It's so beautiful.
Hmm.
But then I was like, maybe humans just think everything is beautiful. And I tried to picture one thing that wasn't beautiful in nature, and I couldn't picture anything. I was like, it must just be human bias for nature.
What about like one of those big spiders? Ugh, they are kind of beautiful though, but ugh. No, no, those centipedes. Centipedes are not beautiful. Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know what I was trying to prove, though. Everything being beautiful also seems like a proof of God.
You know?
Or it seems as much like a proof of God as it seems very non-conclusive to me at this point.
Really, I feel like the older I get, nature is the only reason I think God exists.
Oh, you know what I thought about today that made me think God must exist? Evaporation. Think of where we would be if water didn't evaporate.
It's sustainability. God is the original sustainability director.
It's amazing. And
Director
nothing
of
else
sustainability.
evaporates. Imagine if other things evaporated, that would be terrible. Honey, where's the remote?
It became the ceiling.
Yeah, like water is specifically the thing we need to like make itself scarce every once in a while.
Well, we need it to become water again. Yeah.
We need it to become water again. We need it to get out of our towels so we can use them again.
Yeah.
We need when it rains for it to dry up. That's got to be God. It's got to be God. Otherwise there could be no life on earth that wasn't just fish.
Has your bed dried out?
A little bit because the weather's been more dry.
Okay. Well, this is a good segue, I think. God, the ultimate authority.
I just want to say that was a reference to something I told Rory in a previous episode, if you didn't hear it, about my bed being wet because it's so humid in Israel right now. Not because I wet the bed. In case anyone was confused, I wanted to clear that up. Yeah.
Anyway, this is a good segue. God, the ultimate authority. And that's what we're talking about today, respecting authority.
Yes.
What does authority? I like to start every episode by asking for a definition map. What does authority mean?
Do you do that?
Often, yeah. Maybe you should
Okay.
re-listen to the episodes.
Okay, what is authority? Authority is in any sort of hierarchical arrangement of human beings.
Mhm.
Authority is the power those in the rung above you have to tell you what to do and what not to do. And it can be determined by many different things. It can be determined by the voluntary agreed upon rules of that organization of people. Like if you join a club
Mhm.
and there's some sort of authority structure, it can be determined just by might. A
Well,
bully.
actually, I liked one of these definitions of authority because it brings that into it. It says authority is the exercise of legitimate influence by one social actor over another. There are many ways in which an individual or entity can influence another to behave differently, and not all of them have equal claim to authority. So, for example, a mugger on the street could take all your stuff, take your money, and they would be exerting power over you through might, but they don't have legitimate authority like the tax man taking all of your money from you.
But what about someone like Hitler?
Well, Hitler was elected to office, so yes, he had
But
legitimate
then
authority.
he used the levers of democracy to de-democratize the country. We can say that dictators exert illegitimate authority. Um, Also they violate inviolable human rights. But I still think we think of them as authority figures. It's almost like if the authority figure comes up with some sort of system of rules, even if the system of rules is illegitimate, but there's something formal. I think there's something.
Exactly, yes.
I don't think it really comes down to legitimacy so much as formality.
Oh, I guess what is legitimacy? It could be
Everyone's going to have a
legitimacy can
different
be
definition.
yeah. Oh, here, Max Weber identifies three inner justifications or sources of legitimacy for the exercise of authority. Wow, we have Max Weber's definition right here. One,
Okay.
traditional norms sanctified by longstanding convention.
Okay.
2, charisma, which attracts the personal confidence and devotion of followers. And 3, rational legal consideration supported by belief in the validity of legal status and functional competence. Much of the authority cited in organizations rests on rational legal source of authority.
Okay, I think authority can be illegitimate also and still be authority.
Mhm.
I think that if everyone is paying tribute to the mob boss, he's got some authority,
Well, he's got charisma.
even if he didn't.
And also within the mob, traditional norms sanctified by long-standing convention could make the mob boss the big kahuna in the room, the one they respect.
This is a new mob. They just opened.
Okay. Well, I think he has more precarious authority then.
Yeah. But either way, wh- where does authority come into your life? Obviously, your husband has dominion over you.
Yeah, that's
That's
true.
your most immediate source higher. That's your most immediate supervisor.
Yeah, and that's authority ordained by God, and I must
Yeah.
admit. I am a pretty obedient person.
Hmm.
I like the idea of following rules that have purpose, not meaningless rules, not punitive, but I believe in the importance of authority. And I find it quite scary when people flagrantly um, disobey the authority figure. So I've been thinking a lot about authority as sort of social contract, which is everyone has to buy in, or most people have to buy in to give that person authority. So, for example, in a classroom, the teacher has the authority. But haven't we all been in a classroom with a few bad apples who laugh in the face of the teacher's authority? And nothing is
Hmm.
scarier to me than that, because it's almost like it reveals the precarious nature or the meaninglessness, or that there's no there with the teacher's authority, especially since they got rid of corporal punishment in the classroom.
Yeah. Yeah. It's frightening. There's a Jewish saying, pray for the welfare of the government, for without it, people would eat one another alive.
Hmm.
Now, there's all these sort of Enlightenment era ideas about um, the pre-societal man. Um, and one of them is this idea of, all against all
Hmm.
and life being, what is it, short, nasty, brutish, something like that. There are other thinkers who believe no, like people like we actually don't need these hierarchical systems. Like people are actually good at cooperating in these hierarchical systems. Like this is what like an an anarchist would say. Be like, no, we don't need these hierarchies of power. People can cooperate on equal footing. That's certainly, you're right. That's not what it feels like in the classroom when the substitute teacher shows weakness.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever had like a teacher who's overrun by a class? It's like, and then then you actually feel bad for for the teacher, and then that's a really weird position to be in, because it's like, wow, I have no faith.
Yeah, I've been that teacher. I've been that teacher where you're like, I have no power. There's nothing. They've figured it out.
Yeah,
They've figured
exactly.
out that it's fake. And my words now mean nothing. And my threats are empty. I've got
Yeah, like
nothing.
I was read an article in New York Magazine about these kids, like teenagers who just won't go to school,
Hmm.
and there's just nothing their parents can do.
Yeah.
It's like,
So much of it rests on just this sense that, like, when your mom is counting to three, you don't want her to get to three.
it's it's unbelievable. It's like they laugh in the face of your performance as an authority figure.
Yeah, there's an old episode of South Park where one of the kids becomes his like rebellious, and his parents recognize that he's become ungroundable.
That's the thing.
What are you gonna do?
If you can go without,
Yeah.
because like all you can do is take away privileges, but can you even?
And there's this beautiful short story by Etgar Keret, who's an Israeli writer, about this kid, and he's being bullied by these other kids at the school, and they steal a bike from the janitor, who's a Holocaust survivor, and he tells on them.
Mm-hmm.
They get in trouble. And then they're coming to like beat him up for a ratting. And all of a sudden, the Holocaust Day Remembrance siren goes off, which is a siren that sounds in Israel, and you're supposed to stand quietly. And they freeze. They become like statues because the siren. And he realizes that he can just walk away from them. He doesn't have to freeze. So they're sort of it's such a beautiful moment of freedom when he realizes that they're caught in this amber. You know, they don't actually respect the Holocaust. They stole this guy's bike, but they're unthinking morons. So they're trapped in this like beam of silence and stillness,
Mm-hmm.
and he's free. It's beautiful, and he just trots off, and that's how the story ends.
Well, that's actually something I wanted to talk about, the authority of symbols. So like
Mm.
the stop sign has such authority over me.
Yes.
You know, it's like I could be driving in a completely, as far as the eye could see, no people or no police. But if I come to a stop sign, I'm going to stop because that stop sign has authority. I think I trust the stop sign more than I trust myself. What's the point of the stop sign? To make sure people don't get hurt, right? I can see, I can
Mhm.
just go through the stop sign. No one's around. I can see that there's no one around. But the stop sign says there might be someone around. You have to stop. I
Yeah,
believe the
it's
stop sign knows.
yeah, it's really drilled into us. Um, so this is something I want to ask.
Yeah.
The handicapped bathroom. Obviously, the handicapped spot has absolute authority.
Yeah.
No one dare touch it. The
No,
handicapped bathroom,
if
what
you were,
level of authority does that have?
I just want to say, if you were parking in a handicap spot as a non-handicap person, I don't want to know you because that is like, that is just a middle finger in the face of social rules and customs because we
And
all agree that it is like a sacred spot for only the handicap.
yeah, it's not something like we may have a moment of hesitation outside the handicap bathroom where we go, could I? Should I? No one's doing that with the spot. With the spot, we all understand. We don't even think about it.
Now, with the handicap bathroom stall, I didn't even know that that was something that you should not use until a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode
Really? I
where,
don't remember
yeah,
that one.
where he's in the handicap bathroom and someone in a wheelchair comes in and you, we all know what happens. So I often use the handicap stall.
I do too.
Not, I don't know. It's never come up for me.
Now, I avoid it,
Right. I will use the other stalls first.
but yeah, but the corollary situation of like, I'm having trouble finding a parking spot, you still would never use the spot, even if
Right.
there were no other spots. Whereas the bathroom, if the other stalls are taken, you go, okay.
Because everyone has to wait for the bathroom, even if you're handicapped. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
I think it does.
Yeah. Like all the stalls are taken. So you take the last stall, which happens to be handicapped, which means the handicapped person has to wait in line,
Yeah.
much like everyone else. And it's also
Exactly.
just at the time is of importance here. How long are you in the bathroom stall? 1 minute? How long are you parking for? 2 hours?
Exactly. Which is why the handicapped ramp is at the complete other side of the spectrum.
Anyone can use it.
Anyone can use it because you're not taking it up for any real amount of time.
Yeah. You know, actually thinking about this, I was thinking about disability boarding for airplanes.
Mm-hmm.
So I've recently flew Southwest for Christmas, which I don't fly very often, but there's a whole system of like lining up.
I hate that system.
And I hate it too because the gate agents exert no authority. I need you to be there telling everyone how to line up, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's like when the person with 50 items in the 10 items or less line.
Exactly.
It's like, line checker, this is your line.
You're
A
if you're in
line.
the uniform, you're the authority. You have to step in. You have to save us all from ourselves.
So, uniforms, the power of uniforms
Mhm.
and clothing to make the man.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like yeah, so interesting because like you could be, someone who society wouldn't value your job as highly as others. Let's say a rocket scientist for versus a movie theater usher. But
Hmm.
you, as the usher, are the king of the movie theater. You can kick people out.
Yes.
Do it more.
I know, do it more. Use that authority.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I want a firmer hand in society. Obviously, that I think there should be a lot more shushing going on. And yeah, like, because we need rules in this society about cell phone use on trains
Hmm.
and which side of the escalator to stand on. People don't know there should be commercials. There should have been a Super Bowl ad.
I don't know
Silence
if I would
that.
go that far, but I do.
Silence that texting noise on your phone.
Yeah, they do that, and yet people always think, not me. I don't have my phone on ring. Check anyway, people.
Check
Now,
anyway.
I love the authority that, speaking of airports, that flight attendants, gate agents can and do wield, and how it really came out during the pandemic, I feel, because people were really testing that authority and they would just say, off the plane.
Yeah.
I love seeing those videos of someone behaving really badly on a plane. And then the flight attendant's like, I want her off. And they're like, what?
Skylaw.
Sorry. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, because and that's the thing. You only need to make an example of a few people. Like I've
Mhm.
always thought that if the city I live in started ticketing people who
Annoy you.
ride electric bikes on the sidewalk,
Yeah.
that they would only have to do that maybe one day a month
Uh-huh.
on a couple street corners. And eventually it would start being like the red light, the stop sign.
Mhm.
You don't something you don't do.
Right.
Because what people do when they think that there's no consequences, that's the thing. Authority, and this is kind of the remarkable thing about God, no consequences.
Or so you think.
Yeah, just the threat of future consequence has
Yeah.
proven remarkably effective. And I guess having human agents of God to enforce social isolation and things like that.
What do you mean?
Like if you're part of a religious community and you um have a baby out of wedlock,
Uh-huh.
you'll be sent into the woods.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. It's like, yeah, where the obviously that doesn't happen now here, mostly. Um, so the goalposts do move. Like you made that little joke about my husband being my authority figure.
Well,
Um,
that's back. People are into that now.
yeah, I guess it's back, but I don't know. Who knows? It's just being more, it's on display more.
Yeah.
Um, so authority can be eroded. I mean, the erosion has the authority of the police been more eroded in the last 5 years?
Certainly the moral authority.
Yeah. So were they ever considered a moral authority, though? I thought people were always kind of hated the police.
No, not mainstream society.
Not people who weren't targeted by the police, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. And now even people who aren't targeted by the police think they're corrupt.
Yeah. Like when I worked at Starbucks, we were instructed to give police officers in uniform free coffee.
Right. Right.
I wonder if they still do that.
I bet they do. It's almost a little
Yeah.
bribey.
Yeah.
We don't want any trouble here, officer.
Yeah. Just a free coffee, unlimited.
And then the erosion of authority of the government. I mean, has it ever been at this low, all-time low? Like,
Well, how is the government asserting authority over us?
well, they make
Like,
us pay taxes. They tell us
I
how
mean,
much
so
gas costs.
yeah, like, are we not doing that? Are we not paying taxes more?
I don't know. That's a good question. I guess it's
I
like,
think,
yeah, if say, okay, yeah, like if I don't believe the government is a entity that I can trust, but I still fall in line with the government, does it matter? Is that still perfect authority or strong authority?
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that obedience is probably of more interest to the authority exerter than
Yeah.
belief.
But believe.
Now, yeah, I mean, belief is important too.
Mm-hmm.
In North Korea, they want both. They want the belief and the obedience. But yeah, it's like really crazy that every part of the world is a country.
Well, there are small tribal communities, but yeah. I mean, they still live in
Okay,
a country, I guess.
something I think about a lot is how easy it must have been to get away with certain things in past times.
Oh, I can't believe they ever like tried and convicted people.
Well, I guess, yeah, the evidentiary standards were suitably lower to accommodate.
Yes, exactly.
You could not apply today's evidentiary standards to a medieval murder. Um, by the way, I gave up on the name of the rose.
Il nome della rosa. You don't say.
It was an international bestseller. I expected a little more interesting from an international bestseller.
That's true. It's so thick. Isn't it like this big?
Yeah, it's quite thick, quite dull, too many characters who aren't easy to tell apart.
Listen, if I'm reading a book that's this thick, it's not a bestseller. It's a classic, okay?
Yeah.
I'm getting
Well,
through
you
the
know what I'm reading now? Just a little aside. The Merchant of Venice.
canon. That's my mom's favorite play.
Really?
Yeah. But I've heard
I'll
it's
have to talk to her about
anti-Semitic.
it. Oh, yeah, it's a classic of anti-Semitism. I felt like it's intellectual Jews like to be conversant with it.
I see.
But yeah, it's quite interesting.
I've never.
Shakespeare, there's a classic for you.
Yeah, that doesn't
Real
get
canon.
real canon. But if you could only read one Shakespeare, it should be Hamlet, probably, right? That's the canon. That's the one you submit to the Shakespeare would submit to the canon officers.
I think all of Shakespeare is canon.
It is, but you can only pick one.
If you could only pick one,
It's not all
it's
canon.
it's all canon.
Anthony and Cleopatra.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, but like some of them are about The Tempest. No, you don't need to read The Tempest.
It's all canon. Not everything is as famous or well loved. It's like the Bible is all canon, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, every chapter in Leviticus describing sacrifices is a real, home run.
Sure, but I guess what I'm saying is, what's the canon? What's the canon of the Shakespeare canon?
Yeah. Yeah. There's always an interior canon. I
Any?
just like, now that I'm a real scholar of the Bible,
Oh, you're moving on.
no, no. What I was going to say is that now that I'm a real scholar of the Bible and I read each Torah portion 3 times, twice in Hebrew, once in Aramaic translation, and with commentary,
Wow, you're a real trad wife.
I'm a real trad wife. I'm so aware now that when I read Shakespeare, I'm not getting it. Because what can you get from one reading?
I know what you mean. Even reading Middlemarch, I'm like, I wonder what I'll get from this the next time I read it. Because we're just getting plot right now.
Yeah, it's almost like you should just read 5 books in your life
Over and over again.
over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe shoot for a 6th. Okay, so the authority of books.
Wait, weren't you on a different subject?
Maybe, but we can be discursive, can't we?
I hope it doesn't frustrate our audience, but yes, keep going.
So Judaism ascribes a really high value to the authority of text and also the authority of, there's so many different sources of authority in Judaism. And we were learning something the other day about the reason why certain holidays are 2 days in the diaspora and only 1 day in Israel. It's because each month, each lunar month is either 29 or 30 days. And that determination would be made in Israel. uh, And then it would take some time to get out to the outer neighborhoods back in the day, back in the, 1st century CE.
Sure.
And then they ended up fixing the calendar. So now we have a fixed calendar. We know which months are 29 and which ones are 30. We just
Mm-hmm.
predetermine it. And we still do this 2-day holiday thing. And Maimonides wrote that it's because a tradition acquires the force of law. And even if the reason for the tradition goes away, you still have to do it.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's like stop signs. It's like the reason is to avoid car accidents, avoid hurting people, to have order in traffic. But if there's no other traffic, there's no point to the stop sign, but I still respect it. It's like,
Yeah.
why, what, at a certain point, one must ask why. One must question your relationship to, I think that's an important part of being like growing up and being a teenager and that rebellious stage. Like, it, in the end, gives you a deeper, more meaningful, more thoughtful relationship to the symbols that you respect.
Yes, and I find it very disturbing. It's hard. It's very hard to navigate the right amount of authority to respect because you can become bogged down. But there's something so rootless and empty about just being like, "Fuck all of that. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with me." It's like no, like there's a lot of beauty in tradition and in like these ancient practices. And part of their beauty is in taking them on, not just because you like them, but in taking them on as commitments for better or for worse.
Mm-hmm.
Not every time I pray, I'm in the mood to pray, but I've made this commitment on myself as a religious Jew
Mm-hmm.
to do daily prayer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very hard to navigate. And I also think it's interesting with things like Judaism, which was this rebellion against paganism.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a rebellion against authority,
Mm-hmm. And then
but
it
then you're all
becomes its
supposed to
own.
obey.
Yeah, and then it becomes its own authority.
And America was this rebellion against England,
Did you
taxes,
forget? You're like, you're like, who colonized?
monarchy, monarchy. I'm just saying, like, what was it really about?
Taxation against no representation. I don't know. Yeah, taxes. I don't know. The king. Yes, definitely an important balance because, like, on January 6th, when all those people stormed the Capitol, I think much of us, anyone sane, agreed that that was too much.
Yeah, but they were like, we're the Boston Tea Party, baby.
Yeah, the delusions.
The delusions, but also, oh, I feel like I'm about to say something so controversial, but I don't really mean it.
Okay.
What did the British mainstream media think about the Boston Tea Party?
Right, right.
I don't support January 6th insurrection. Okay. I think they were crazy.
It's just in hindsight, we see that the Boston Tea Party
Lunatics.
was, the Boston Tea Party was an act of terrorism, lest we forget,
Did they
by
kill people
thought leaders. I don't know. Do you have to kill people if,
for it to be terrorism?
yeah, no.
I think so. I think otherwise it's just like vandalism and performance art.
Oh, terrorism? You just cause terror.
Who was terrified by that? Well, the fish.
I
Those
guarantee you don't actually
amped
need to
up.
kill someone for it to be terrorism. No,
Okay,
no one died.
blowing up like a state building, even if it's empty, is terrorism.
Yeah.
Um, I guess so. It's not very terrifying. I think the tarring and feathering is much more terrifying.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, there's definitely a scale of terrorism. The less terrifying, the more terrifying. Anyway, but it was you're like looking back, okay, these were like thought leaders, at least. Not a single thought leader among those January 6th insurrectionists, but who are we to say who's the authority on thought leadership and righteousness? It's like history, how it
Yeah.
works out in the end.
Yeah. I mean,
It's just so
this
hard
is
because you start going down the road of like relativism and moral relativism, and it's just like it's such a futile journey.
well, sometimes me
Circular.
and Yoav have these discussions, and Yoav's a very sees things from all perspectives type of
Mhm.
person.
Yeah.
And he's always like, well, they don't see it that way. They see it this way. And
Mhm.
I'm always like, yes. And they're wrong. I know they see it that way. And that is a wrong way to see it. And I, I think relativism is also a scale. I think that even with some sort of ability to be like, well, is January 6th the same as the Boston Tea Party? I I do think that on some level it's possible to evaluate things and come to some sort of solid conclusion about legitimacy versus illegitimacy, even if you're like, but those January 6th people believed in it just as much. It's like, yeah, but what they believed in was QAnon, and that is objectively stupid.
Yeah. Agreed. They are
Or
they
is
are
it?
they are dumber, I guess that's my point.
They're dumber. That is your point. They're not reading John Locke. Now, I have been kind of deep in conspiracy theory Instagram reels lately.
Oh, a bad place to be.
I love it because what I'm really there for is spooky Instagram reels. That's my latest thing.
Even if they're fake.
I like to think that they're real sometimes.
Okay, but what if they're fake?
Skinwalkers,
Yeah, no,
ghosts.
definitely not.
Sometimes this found footage really is quite
I'm
scary.
sure it's
That
very
balloon,
that balloon.
come on, that
That
balloon
balloon
was
was scary, but it's also nothing. But I guess you're just there for
no.
the base level spooks.
Oh my God, someone at my synagogue is a professional psychic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we're inviting him over for dinner.
Oh, fun.
I thought maybe we could get him on the pod, but first I have to like develop a rapport.
Yeah. So what were you saying? You're on conspiracy talk?
Conspiracy talk, ghosts. I'm on a tangent, really.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, do you want to talk about the Milgram experiment? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, would you explain it?
I will explain it. So, this was an experiment done at Yale, I think in the 70s. Um, and it's a very famous experiment. Most of you have probably heard of it, but I'll explain anyway as a little refresher that this man, Milgram, had an actor and a real person perform an experiment where the real person was told to give electric shocks to an actor. They didn't know it was an actor, though. They thought they were both subjects of the experiment every time that they got a memory question wrong. So they were shocking people, thinking they were shocking people. And these people were the
They couldn't
actors.
see.
They couldn't see them, but they could hear them.
Yeah.
And the actors, were screaming, were begging for mercy. And the subjects were told to actually just keep increasing the electric shocks. And most people, 65% of the subjects were willing to go up to the highest voltage, just because they were told in various different ways to
By
keep
a man in a white coat.
Yeah, they thought the man was running the experiment, which he was, and was telling them that they had to increase the voltage to the actors in order to complete the experiment. So the man in the
He
white
didn't
coat,
introduce himself as a doctor. He just wore a white coat.
did I say he was a doctor? Yeah, he didn't introduce himself as a doctor.
I'm just saying.
Oh, okay.
I think it's interesting because, like, just the symbol of the white coat.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was supposed to demonstrate that authority can make average people do terrible things to each other just because they're told to.
It was very much a post World War II. It was in dialogue with the Holocaust.
Yes. Essentially, they were trying to figure out how so many people were able to participate in the Holocaust. And one theory was the way that you get ordinary people to comply with if you have authority to do even terrible things.
Yes.
And it is a terrifying experiment.
Yes. And there was also that other experiment, the Stanford prison guard experiment.
Yeah, but I think in subsequent years, they found out that that was actually not a very well done experiment. And in almost like it's basically the conclusions are null and void.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So, and then the push.
And then the push, which I think we've talked about on this one.
We have.
I think we have, where you want to explain it quickly.
Yeah, the push is the most significant TV show ever made that no one has ever seen except me. I've never found someone who's seen it. It's on Netflix, right?
I have no idea where you watched it.
It's called The Push. The idea is that this guy is going to take an ordinary person and turn them into a murderer in one night. So you're a graphic designer. This guy tells you, I have a job for you. You come, you meet him he's busy. He's working in an event this night, some big award show. He's a higher up at this organization, blah, blah, blah. You go and meet him there. The whole environment is fake. Everyone there is an actor except for you. And he slowly starts exerting authority over you, becoming more and more aggressively domineering. And eventually he tells you to kill someone. And like 9 out of the 10 people who did the experiment killed the person. Obviously, no one was murdered during the making of the show, but they pushed someone off of a roof thinking that they were killing someone, not aware that there was a net to catch them.
Do you think the people who pushed have never thought about how terrible it would be to accidentally kill someone? Because, like, I think about that all the time, like driving.
Yeah, I feel like I'm so ready to not push someone. I'd be like, no, I've run drills for this for years. I remember I had a dream when I was a kid where I pushed a woman off a cliff.
Is this real?
Yeah,
Oh.
by accident. I like bumped her off a cliff. And it was one of the most disturbing dreams. The guilt I felt was so overwhelming. And ever since then, it's been, as you know, a huge fear of mine, accidentally causing grievous bodily harm to someone.
Yeah, I mean, shouldn't be a big fear to anyone, but you should be aware of it. That's what I mean, we all like to think we wouldn't push, right? We all like to think we wouldn't get to the highest voltage. That's the problem.
I really think I wouldn't push. I think I might get to the highest voltage.
Well, now, pretty much every person who was administering the shocks, the subjects of the experiment, were hesitant and did not want to go on. But the experimenter, the person in the lab coat, would say, please continue. And then if they were like, no, if they resisted again, they would get increasingly more forceful instructions from the experimenter. So the experiment requires that you can continue. or it is absolutely essential that you continue. And then finally, the last one they would get is you have no other choice. You must go on.
Wow.
Yeah. So it wasn't just like, just do it. And they're like, okay. It's like they would be in dialogue with the experimenter being like, I don't want to do this. And they're being told that they have to.
Yeah, I mean, I think like authority, I
They
just
also
listened to what?
I was they also said that they were also told the subjects of the experiments, the one administering the shock, that the person receiving the shock would not suffer any lasting damage. So it's painful, but it's not permanent.
That's why I think I would do it. I think I don't think I would kill someone in the push, but I do think I could be convinced by a forceful, scary person in a lab coat to administer shocks if I was being reassured that it wouldn't cause
Right.
lasting harm.
Right.
So so yeah, those people obviously they caused real harm, but they believed that, well, actually they didn't, but they believed that they weren't causing lasting harm, which puts a different lens on how monstrous we think they are capable of being.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I think, I don't know if I've mentioned it on the show or not, but one of the greatest wisdom teachings I ever learned when I adopted a cat,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know this, it's one of my go-tos.
It's a
And
good
I
thing.
asked the person at the shelter, do you train cats? And she said, no. You set up the environment so that things go well for the cat. You don't train them. Morality is a society wide issue. We cannot rely on good people to do good. We need a society that sets up people to do good because people are really easily manipulated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was very easy. There was no pre-established pre-established authority that these people came into this experiment with, which I think is the most interesting thing about it. It didn't take long for the authority to be asserted. Now,
Yeah.
obviously there are key differences between this experiment and what happened in the Holocaust, namely that was, they were trying to wipe out an entire people versus causing
Hmm.
them temporary discomfort.
Yeah, they
But
knew what they were doing.
exactly. But they had longer amounts of time to wear these people down and to exert their authority to get them to be more obedient.
Yes.
Years and years and years of insidious manipulation.
Yes.
I
And
just think
I've
it's
read,
actually very important for all of us to remember how easily manipulated we can be and to never think you're above that. Because what will keep you in check is recognizing how malleable our morality can be.
malleable.
Mal malleable.
Yes, we need to that's the hope. The hope is that the post Milgram generation is a little less Milgramy.
But at the same time, it's like
A Milgram's progress.
we are the post Milgram generation and people, and I think that we are much more leery of authority. Or is that just age?
Well, it's age. We're also witnessing a global rise in authoritarianism
But don't you think that that's sort of like just the world becoming more polarized?
between free will in America and
Yeah. And even within our
tough.
own society,
Yeah, you have
strong
more.
leftist movement, the strong right wing movement, both movements are more visible than not ever, but
Yeah.
in the last 100 years, let's say.
Yeah, humans,
Oh, it's tough stuff.
we're always changing. That's a thing.
Are we, or are we just always repeating ourselves?
We might indeed be always repeating ourselves, but what I mean is that we're always in flux. So the post-war liberal order, it would have been fabulous if we just stayed there and kept polishing it. I'm not saying it was perfect, but I'm saying keep polishing it, keep working on it, keep the basic structure in place. But no, people become restless and want to change. And they have to like relearn horrible mistakes that other generations had already learned.
Yeah. It's tough stuff. I mean, authoritarian regimes are terrible. I mean, rules for no reason, punitive rules.
And
I mean,
that's like the
insane.
whole
Like
like
some of these horrible dictatorships were just so outrageously insane. It's it's just crazy to me that one person was able to have such silly thoughts and then make them into reality in these countries.
yeah.
I guess I'm
Now do
thinking
you
of like, sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. My thought was a little discursive.
Mine was about like the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. Like everyone had to wear a uniform. They somehow got everyone to leave the cities and become farmers. It's like, wow, that's like a madman's idea that he was able to put into action.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, were the uniforms red?
I think they were gray.
Um, do you think the past, like again, the like obviously in the Middle Ages you had really strict hierarchies, but there's something about today with our technology, our ability to govern people at the individual level. Each person can be governed and tracked and ruled
Mm,
over. Do you
mhm.
think the past was less authoritarian than the present?
That's such a good question. I mean, I guess it would just be different. It's like you had no way of changing your social status that you were born into.
Yeah.
And your obligations were very like had real implications, like you don't farm, you don't eat kind of thing.
Yeah, but it's not like people did people want to change it? It's like those options just didn't exist. You couldn't be like, you marry the butler and I'll be a gay octomom. You know, like those. So like, did they feel constricted? It's not like a young Billy Elliot in 1472 was like, I want to dance. He didn't know what dancing was. And there,
um
if
yeah, I think
there's,
they felt like, wow, if only I had been born to that big in that big manor house and here I am tilling the soil.
mm, yeah,
They had
that
to have
like,
thought that.
yeah, that one big manor house.
Yeah.
Instead of sleeping on this bed of hay with 8 members of my family being eaten by bugs.
Yeah, exactly. But there was no meritocracy, which made us obsessed with like climbing social ladders. So maybe there was sort of a degree of contentedness that we don't have
Hmm.
today.
Yeah.
But more authority. I think it was in your in the day-to-day life of an average person. I think maybe less because they didn't have a manager asking you where you were all day, right?
There was no manager.
I guess we're talking about this like one slice of history though, like feudal poor white people in the feudal system of England and
Yeah,
maybe
that's what we're talking
France.
about. But yeah, it's like, but
China.
also like when you read like old codes of Jewish law, they talk about like traveling.
Mhm.
And when you traveled from place to place, there was usually a long stretch of time on your trip when you were between places and you were not in a place.
Mhm.
And that was an incredibly dangerous time because there were brigands on the road
Mm.
and no one to stop them.
Yeah. Robbers, thieves,
Yeah.
pirates.
Our world is so now, obviously, I don't want to go back to that, but there's something a little bit just disturbing about the fact that society, and we've talked about this before, society has no margins. There's no, you have to be a part of it.
There's
Like
it's so hard to opt out. It's like it's almost illegal to opt out.
it's illegal to opt out. And I think that's probably like part of the fascination with uncontacted tribes.
Mhm.
But you know what? Like, forget uncontacted tribes. I think it's amazing that there there are no wild humans, just no language,
No feral humans.
Yeah, like that our system of society is so total that
Yeah.
100% of all, how many people are there?
8 billion?
I think 8 billion.
7.8 billion, yeah.
All 8 billion, none of them are just like feral in the woods somewhere.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
I mean, I think there are some people who live in the woods off the grid, but yeah.
There are people who live in the woods off the grid, but they have language, they have society, they have
Yeah.
um no one is feral.
Right. Besides those feral children.
Yeah.
Um, but even they lived in
Now.
society. Anyway. Eventually. Okay, well, what do you think about it? What are your closing thoughts on authority? Is it how to be? What?
I think that um there are times in life where you have to break the shackles, and times in life where it's good to weave threads of authority to take on some real commitments to things that are bigger than us. And I think each person needs to ask themselves what they could use a little more of. Because if you're really bogged down with authority, you might need to go break free, quit your job, go buy a house in Tuscany. But if you are someone who's been living this rootless postmodern life, then maybe consider joining the Church of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think it's important to question your relationship with authority, and question really everything you do in life, why you're stopping at that stop sign and concluding for yourself why it's a good thing to do. I believe in the stop sign. I'm grateful we have them. Um, but do not go blindly into that corporate retreat, okay?
Hmm.
Because some of this is just a bunch of bullshit and you have to play along, but your heart doesn't have to be in it.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt, always a pleasure.
Yeah, that was fun.
Okay. I'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.